basically your RTU panel. It's got the red line OIT screen on it. This is going to be the first screen that's going to be up. Basically, you can take a look at stuff, but you can't access anything unless you log in. So, first screen I'll take you to is if you look on the buttons on the bottom, this is how you navigate. We have the log in, log out. That gives you access to basically logging on as a different user. So user 1. So it's going to ask for your login. You have to hit enter, and then you have to enter your password. And that's going to bring you to this screen where you can either log out. There's an edit password, so you can go in here and change the password depending on the user rights. And then there's a time and date. This thing gets off date. You can adjust it here. Basically, you just click on that. You scroll through, adjust what you need to adjust. You hit enter, and then hit set time. And then I'll change the time. So if you guys turn to page 3, that'll show you an overview of basically this screen and the different alarms that show up on it. All alarms will end up showing up and will pop up in this alarm page. So this will show you basically which alarms are active. If you look, the red ones will be the ones that are currently active. The green ones are the ones that have basically cleared themselves, that are no longer active, but you'll have to accept them to get rid of them. If you accept an active alarm, it'll turn olive.
It'll turn what?
This olive color.
Oh, okay.
So it's going to change state to that olive color if you do accept it. Now when that happens again, the alarm happens again, it's going to go ahead and pop back up again. And then you have your event, and that basically gives you more detail. That tells you, who's logged on, who's logged off, what changes have been made, plus the alarm. So that's going to give you all the information there. All right. So I guess I could take you through some of these alarms.
Can you go back to that alarm screen one more time?
Sure.
Okay, so you have an intrusion alarm. You want to clear that one.
Yep.
Click on it.
So you click it.
Ooh. Yep. You gotta get on it. Just like you, Bob.
All right.
And you go to acknowledge on the.
And then you hit set over here.
Okay, now when you accept it, it's going to change to olive, right?
Yes.
You don't like it. You use the other finger.
Have you been hit with a lot of electricity? There you go.
Now, if it's a current one, though, it's not going to change to green, right?
No, it won't change the green until it's cleared.
Okay.
So basically, if it's active and then it clears itself, it'll turn green. If it's still active, but you hit accept, it'll turn olive.
Right. Okay. So I just see, it had turned green for a minute, but the intrusion alarm, is that just in this building? Is that where it is?
You have the 3 doors, have the intrusion alarms, and then you have a cabinet intrusion alarm as well. And that's this one right here.
Right. All right.
Alright, so like I said, when different alarms pop up that are critical, they'll show up on this main page as well. So one of the main ones is the reservoir low level alarm, all pumps locked out. Basically what that's going to do is you're going to turn all the pumps to an interlock. It's going to say interlock. All the pumps will turn blue, and it will flash up here. It'll say reservoir level, low switch alarm, all pumps locked out. That means that low level switch, the float in the tank, has basically gone below its point, and it's going to prevent any of the boosters from coming on. The discharge pressure analog fail. That's basically what's controlling your boosters, is that discharge pressure out there. So basically, if that fails, if you lose signal from that, what it's going to do is it's going to lock that out, and it's going to put this into what's called backup PSHL mode. And you can see over here the light, the amber light on the VFDs that say backup PSHL, that means it's going to be working off the Mercoid switches. So at that point, the PLC is getting pulled out. It's no longer in control. Everything's being controlled by those Mercoids because that pressure switch failed.
Right.
That'll also occur if the pressure out there drops below, I think it's 38, 36, or it's different for different pumps. But if it does that, it'll lock themselves out, put them in the backup PSHL mode, and work off the Mercoids. Any questions on that?
Okay, wait a minute.
Yeah, ask
So-
questions as you go. It's important to ask questions if you have them now, so that you don't get.
Okay, so discharge pressure analog fail. And what is gonna cause that to actual fail?
That will fail. Basically, the PLC's looking at the signal coming back. It's a 4 to 20 milliamp signal.
Right.
If it drops below, I think it's 3,200 milliamps, it will put it into the failure mode.
Okay.
So if that fails, or those Mercoid pressure switches drop below their set point, they will close a contact and put these into backup PSHL mode.
Right, so the pressure, what you're saying is if the pressure out there fails and it gets too low, then it's gonna go into.
Well, it's two different systems. You basically have the pressure gauge, the analog one that's out there.
PIT.
And then we have Mercoid switches, which are the mechanical ones.
Right, and those are backup.
Those are the backups,
Right.
correct. So either one of those can put it into the backup mode. Basically, if we lose our signal from the pressure out there,
Oh.
or the Mercoids drop below their set point pressure,
Right.
they'll put it into that mode.
Okay. And then does that doesn't actually lock the pumps out?
That doesn't lock the pumps out, it puts it under control of the Mercoids. So, but it locks the PLC out from controlling anything at that point. So basically, if the PLC fails, or I lose that analog signal from my pressure, the PLC is gonna be locked out of control. It's not gonna be controlled there anymore, it's gonna go into control with the Mercoids.
Right, so it'll work in auto operation, but it'll work off the Mercury.
Correct.
Okay, so if you have a power fail in your, you don't have actual, like say the generator doesn't kick on or whatever, and you lose everything else,
Yep.
then we're gonna run in auto off of the Mercury.
If it drops below that certain pressure point,
Okay.
it will.
Right.
The PLC is on the UPS, so it will watch and see what's going on. Basically what will happen is you'll probably get a fault on your drives if the power drops out.
Right.
So that's gonna drop out. You're probably gonna get a fault on one of these, until you get your power coming back up. Everything's powered back up. I've got it set up so it will reset if it shows transferring over to generator or transferring back over to main power. After 45 seconds, it'll reset itself to allow everything to come back up normal.
Right.
If it doesn't at that point, then it's going to be on the Mercoids. So, all right. So now we have, right now you'll see I have the reservoir level switch high flashing. Basically, that means that top float up there is raised up, so we're getting that signal in. You also have a reservoir level switch low, so that just gives you an alarm that you're getting close to that low low.
So how many floats have you got in the?
3.
Oh, you have 3.
Yep.
So you have a high pressure, or a high level, low level,
And a
Yeah.
low low low.
Does,
and a low low. Okay.
does it, can you show them what the low level is set at, how many feet the low and the low low are? Will it display it on there?
It's not displayed on here. In other words, those are physical floats.
Right, I understand,
Uh-huh.
but can they see this, what those points are as far as how many feet? So if they know they're in low,
Right.
I guess they could,
What
they could
what
just
is
read,
that?
they could just read what it says on the screen, right?
Well, the tank is
Yeah,
what,
that'll tell you what, basically, this is telling you what it's at currently.
29.5 feet, I think is what it reads right now.
Yeah.
So your low level is what, maybe 10 foot or something, or?
I'd have to look on the plans and see what they were set to.
We could
I
check.
don't know
We
if
can
it's-
check with Jeremy too. He's still
Yeah, we
here.
can check with Jeremy
Yeah,
and
that was
find
my
out what their
question.
actual set point was.
So it'll go past that low flow,
Mhm.
and it'll just give you an alarm, and then it'll go to low, low, and if you get to low, low, then it cuts everything off. No
Then
problem.
everything's locked out.
Right, okay.
So, and that's actually permissive, so it'll lock everything out,
Right.
even the manual and all that stuff.
Right. Okay, now, when the floats fail, are there spares or anything for any of that, or probably not, huh?
Depends on,
If it's in the contract?
yeah, it would have to be in the contract. I don't know about what the spares, you know, what spares were set up or given or any of that.
Does the PIT on the tank, does it also function in the same way?
Yes, it has the low alarm. So you set this up, click on there, see this low limit? That will lock it out as well. So if the float fails, it'll still go off the pressure, the level transducer
Okay.
there, and it'll lock it out as well. So there's a physical lockout, and then there's a lockout in the PLC.
Right. So is there a way to bypass the floats, I think is another thing that, can you, like say if your float fails, can you bypass that float and work it off of your pressure, transmitter or pressure level indicator, whatever?
Once that's a physical connection in there, so you would have to actually
Bypass.
yeah,
Okay.
you'd have to jump it out.
Right, okay.
Basically, you'd have to go into the terminal where it is and jump it
Yeah,
out. at
but
that
you
point.
were saying it's already set up to do that, essentially, to, if the PLC reads off of the PIT, off of the existing PIT, if it reads that it reaches a low level, then it's also gonna kick it out, correct?
It will. But he's saying if that float fails and it's not a low level condition, was that what you were saying?
Yeah.
He was asking, how can you get it to work? And you have
Gotcha.
to jump it out at that point
Gotcha.
because it's a permissive, so.
Okay.
I'm just thinking ahead of, you know,
No.
a year or two when you guys
Yeah.
are gone out of here, what am I gonna have to do or what are we gonna have to do to get stuff going?
No,
Getting over.
no good questions.
Getting over.
I know.
So each one, so basically, this is kind of like your analog screens. Each one of your analogs has this type of setup. So for your flow, for your pressure, you know, they have this screen where you have the high, the low, the low. It's got your alarm deadband, and it has your alarm delay. So, you know, it's got to be in that condition for how many seconds before it turns on. And then, you know, the deadband, it has to go that much above that point before it will reset itself. All right, then we got the pumps here. So basically, your pumps are going to have 5 conditions that they could be in. There's going to be an interlock, which is going to be blue, and it'll say interlock up here. And that means it's been locked out from the low-level flow, or low-level condition. It's, I have what's called a backspin, which is it's running, and then, you know, basically you lose signal before it'll start up again. It has the timeout. So that's settable. You can set that point up, but it'll show backspin. You've got your running, which will be red, and your called, which will be red. Now called is when you're called to run, but you're not getting your run signal yet.
Does that show on a screen then too, or no?
Yeah, that'll show right here. Basically, you'll get, right here, it'll tell you what condition it's in, and then the color of the motor itself will also tell you that.
So has it got other buttons in or something that come up?
If you click on it, it'll give you the motor pump control, and that'll tell you basically, it'll also tell you what condition the switch is out there. It's either an off, or off, or local, it'll be local.
Okay, so you have red or green, auto or manual. So is it red which one is,
On.
yeah, which one is on right now?
Red?
Red.
Red is going to be selected,
Okay,
and green is the one is basically off.
right, okay.
So that's how they're set up.
Right, we weren't.
So right now it's in auto mode
Right.
and, you know, stop.
Right, okay.
So if you want to start, you'd have to hit start or manual.
And then you hit start and it'll turn red.
Correct.
And the stop will be.
Yes. Yep. All Alright, and on the VFDs, you're gonna have the PID screen as well, which tells you kind of what's going on with the PID. So that's gonna give you your percentage, basically your set point. This is your process variable, which is going to be your pressure, and then this is gonna be your output. Basically what you're sending out to the VFD to the signal to have it run. So the alarms that happen with the motors are fail to respond, which is basically you're called to run, and you don't get a running signal back in a certain amount of time. And that's settable in there. I'll take you to the set points on there. But that'll be your fail. It will flip over, if that's the lead, it'll flip over to the lag pump to turn it on if it gets that fail to run signal. You have a fault, which is actually a physical input from the motor that it's faulted, or the VFD cabinet that it's faulted, and that'll show up there. That'll lock you out. It'll lock in. That fault will lock in. So even if the signal goes away, you have to reset it. The reset will be right here, this button. That'll reset basically faults, low flow conditions, or PSHLs to get it out of that.
It won't tell you what the fault is, it'll just
Yeah,
say that it is a
it'll
fault.
say the fault here,
Oh, look,
and you'll see the faults above here if you look on page 3.
right, okay.
So you have a fault and you have a high temp that'll show up as
Okay.
well. And the high temp will be from the motor.
Right.
It's showing right there on the screen. He's showing you a fully blown out, everything's in bad shape.
Yeah,
Screen.
if it looks like this, plant's in bad shape. So you have your low flows underneath there as well. And that condition is if your pump is called to run and you don't get a flow signal, you're not getting above 200 gallons per minute, it will give you that low flow. It'll lock that pump out and then try the next pump. So it'll keep doing that, but once it tries it, you have to reset it. And then the bottom one below that is on the backup PSHL, which means that you either lost your discharge pressure signal or there were coils that put it in that condition.
So any idea what would cause a low flow? Would it be a problem with the pump, or was it a problem?
It could be caused, yeah, basically that low flow is saying you're not getting a flow signal through there. In other words, your pump is running,
Right.
but there is no gallons per minute going through.
Right, like
So,
under 200 gallons a minute or something.
correct,
Whereas normally it's say 1,500 gallons a minute or something.
yeah.
So it would make you think there's a problem with
There's
the pump.
something wrong.
Okay.
What if the shaft broke or?
Or one of
Yeah.
the valves out there left shut, or
Yeah.
could be a number of
Anything
things.
that would prevent you from reading the flow signal.
Right.
Or the flow meter itself is
Yep.
having trouble.
Goes out. All right, you'll also get a low flow with call up above here. If one of these gets a low flow, if anyone does, it'll basically give you an alarm right there as well. All right. So that basically covers this front screen right here. Obviously, when we go over, you've got your level, and then you've got your physical representation of the water in the tank. Your MOV, that's the manual operated valve. So you have a manual control over it, or you can have it in auto. I'll show you where those set points are here in a minute.
I'm missing a clip on the underside.
So here's your set point. You're going to have, I've got regular duty set points, which is for the VFDs, the 260 horsepower motors. And then you have your emergency duty, which are the, I think they're 100 horsepower
Yeah.
RVSSs, so the soft starters. And then you have your backspin and fill timers, and then you have your set points for the MOV, which are go off the tank level. So close and open off the tank. Now when you go into one of these, you'll notice you have black with a white background. That means you're just viewing it. You can't make any changes there. you have to go to the adjust set points. So once you get to the adjust set points, you're going to get this screen right here. This is going to be your current set point. That's what we have in there right now, and they're in the program themselves. So you have your save set points. Well, what you can do is say you change this to the lead start pressure, let's say to 70, and you like that setup, and you want to keep that there. It changed there, but you can go to save set points. And then say you're making changes here, and you want to restore all the saved, you just hit restore saved, and it'll transfer them back. Now you want to go back to the original default settings. You hit restore initial set points, and it changes that back over to 60. And you can say save set points, and that'll change your current to the save. Everyone kind of follow that? So on the regular duty set points, these are the VFDs. Basically how it's set up is you have your lead start pressure set point. Let's change that to 65. Okay, so that's when, or actually that is going to be 60. Okay, so when your pressure drops below the 60 psi, that's when it's going to turn on the VFD. You have your lead start delay and lead stop delay. I put that to 0 seconds. That'd just be the time after I hit the set point that I either start and then the delay of stopping it, if you guys want to do so. You have your lead lag deadband. What this is this is the deadband you want before the second VFD comes on. So, you have this lag start delay of 60 seconds and this lag stop delay of 60 seconds. So what this is you have your VFDs, and your first one comes on and it's trying to maintain that 65 PSI set point. It's not able to, and you have that deadband, so it drops down. It can only maintain, let's say, 62 or 60 PSI, and it's at 100% for this lag deadband time. That'll bring your second VFD on. So it'll try to catch up. And it'll lock in to the same, and then it'll ramp up and down according to where it is with the set point. So you got your system pressure set point, that's what it's trying to maintain. Now it'll shut off after it drops to its minimum speed. So it's maintaining pressure. Both drives come down to 42 hertz, and they're sitting there. After they sit there for the 60 seconds, the 1 minute, the second VFD will drop out, and the main VFD will be running. Now that one will not shut down until you hit this high pressure set point of 70. And then you have your VFD max speed, which is 60 hertz, and then your minimum speed setup, which is 42 hertz. And that's adjustable. So you can adjust that and adjust set points. Any questions on that?
So you're saying that when the pumps are operating and they're trying to maintain pressure, at some point they'll pump up to 70 psi before they shut off.
Correct.
So that means your system is getting up to 70 psi at that point, and then as demand, I guess, takes over, it'll slowly bleed off that pressure.
Yeah, so if you hit that 70, it'll shut down, and then it'll come back on once it hits that 60. And then it'll ramp back up and try to maintain the 65.
Okay, so you hit, your lead pump comes on at 60. It can't keep up because of demand or whatever.
Yep.
And within, what'd you say, it has to drop 3 psi.
Right. It's got to
within 60 seconds or so.
Yeah, basically, it has to be below the 65 PSI. That's your deadband. So you have your 65, so it'd have to be like at 62.
Right.
Below 62.
For what, a minute or so?
For a minute. And that's if that other VFD's got to be at 100% during that time.
Right, okay, and then the second one will kick on.
Yep.
After your minute delay or whatever.
Correct.
Both of them will ramp up, bring it up to
65 is what they're going.
65, okay, and then, the lag pump kicks out.
It'll kick out once it's down. Basically, it's gonna try to maintain that 65.
Right.
And it's gonna ramp down to do that. So once they ramp down to 42 hertz, their lowest setting, and they're there for a minute, that's when that second one's gonna drop out.
Okay, then the first one, the lead pump,
It stays running.
it'll probably ramp up.
Well, it'll stay running until it goes above that 70 PSI.
Right, I know, but what I'm saying, when the first one kicks out, or I mean, the second one kicks out,
Yep.
all the load is on the first one, so
Right.
it's probably gonna ramp up a bit to, I mean, if they were running at 42 hertz, then it would probably kick up to 60 hertz or something.
It'll kick up to try to get it whatever to that set point. It needs to maintain the 65 or whatever set point you have the system at.
Until it gets to 70 and then it shuts off.
Correct.
So VFDs keep it maintained at 65. So if we have airport, how's that going to coincide with airport?
So they're gonna figure out what is it gonna, because they're gonna alternate them. They're not gonna keep them both running at the same time. They're gonna figure that out when they
Because
put
we
that
have,
on the
yeah, because
scale.
we have to push that water in the system too.
Yeah.
We can't just stay in the tank the whole time.
They're gonna try to alternate those. Yeah, talking about, this one, shut this one down, run that one from here to back and forth.
So the emergency duty set points are for the RVS, the soft starters, the big pumps. They run in a lead standby setup. So both of them aren't going to come on at the same time, one at a time. If one fails or they shut down, they'll alternate depending on your one-time hours or who is on last. So your lead start pressure set point, so they'll start up at 50, they'll stop at 73. The way these work is if your VFDs are on and it drops below the 50 PSI, it's going to lock those wherever they're at. They'll probably both be at 60 hertz or they'll be like that, but wherever they're at. So if they're on, they're going to stay on. If they're off, they're going to stay off unless this pump can't get it up to that 73 PSI. After a minute, if it can't reach it, it's going to turn both VFDs on 100% to try to get it up to that 73 PSI.
Okay, so, what did you call those pumps? The
I call them the RVSSs. They're soft start. They're the big pumps.
those are the
emergency
100
duty
horse,
pumps.
right?
Yes.
Okay, so normally it would run off of the 60 horse, the small, or how big are the small ones?
They're 60.
60, so normally it's gonna run off of
Correct.
the smaller ones, that they can't keep up with it, then they'll kick on the,
If it drops below that 50 PSI,
Right.
that's when they're going to come on. So those VFDs should be on, trying to maintain that. You cannot maintain their 65 PSI. So, if you got a lot of water being, released, and we got to bring those on, is when that occurs.
so probably those, if we put it auto, the way our system is running right now, those probably would never kick on.
No, unless we got a big leak, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, but, is there a way that we can periodically just run them?
Yep, absolutely. You can run them in manual out there, or you can run them in manual here. So you kick there, and you go manual, start, and start them up.
So you probably wanna run those, once a month, or once a week, or once, every now and then, or any idea?
Maintenance, I couldn't tell you right offhand. Yeah.
See, we had a program,
Programming on there. To run those 100 hertz every once in a while.
You probably wouldn't want to do that unless you were here.
we had a program, and we have a program for some of our wells, so that if they don't run for a week, kick it on, it'll run for 30 minutes, I think, and then shut it off. It still does it, right? Well, every now and then we'll see, well, what the hell is this? Where the thing runs for 30 minutes, we can't figure it out. But is there a way to program these also to run?
I don't have that program in here right they are gonna turn on and put a lot of pressure on your system. And they have a high pressure switches out there for 75 PSI.
Well, you can run them at a lower pressure too, though, right? Can't you, or no?
Those are on or off. So the big ones are on or off. They're not, yeah, they're running full speed. So when those come on,
That's why you'll be here when you kick them on, right?
Yeah.
Manually.
yeah, because they're gonna put a lot of pressure in your system. Yeah.
I mean, how much pressure you talking about when those kick on? Is it, over 70 pounds?
Like a bunch of call-ups, Bob.
Okay.
I don't know, we haven't done them, we haven't turned them on and connected to the system yet. We've done it open pipe, so flows a lot of water.
And even then, it still surges it pretty good, so.
Yeah.
You're gonna have several hydrants open in order to kick those suckers on.
Well, like if you wanted to fill pump out 3 real quick, it's gonna fill everything else too. It's just gonna go through the whole system everywhere, right?
While we're filling the airport, we copy line with that.
Yeah, well, shit.
You don't want to be the Newfound Hills. All right, let's see. So I went through set points. Here's basically the fail delays. This pump 101 fail delay. That's what I was talking about when you call to run and you don't get a run signal. That's what that's set. The backspin delay, that's basically where the pump's calling to be on and it stops calling before it'll start back up. That's how many seconds it'll wait before it'll start back up. And then zero flow to delay. That's the time between when it starts up and you're not getting that flow signal. So it waits 30 seconds before it'll give you the low flow. There. So let's go to, here's the flow totalizer. So the flow totalizer is just a pop-up. It'll give you your hourly, your daily, your monthly, and your total. And then it has a reset button right there that you can reset it back to 0. Then we have our one-time hours. So you have your pump 1, pump 2, pump 3, and pump 4. It'll tell you your total motor starts, your run hours. This is your daily starts, your daily run hours, and that's the previous day starts and run hours. And you can reset those with these buttons. Let's see, we got our trends. So I'm not going to have a lot because I just turned this on, but it's basically giving me your trends for your analogs that we have. The utility page. This kind of gives you an idea of your power, what's going on with it. You got your 24-volt power alarms. So if you have failures here, it'll tell you what's failed. Your power fail 1 or your power supply 2, and then your diode bridge. If that fails, that'll show up here. It also shows up in the alarms page. This is just a quick overview.
Now the power supply, is that in this cabinet or is that in the?
This guy. These are the 24-volt DC
Right.
power supplies that are there. The UPS, you have your on UPS power, your UPS alarm, so that'll come on if you're on UPS power, you have low battery, and then you have your low battery. You got your power, basically right now is in utility position, and utility power is available. And that'll tell you if there's your generator's on and if the power is available for it. Then you have your generator running, generator engine fail, and generator power available.
Does it have, maybe you don't know this, but you don't exercise weekly, one, the generator?
I don't have it set up to do that. I don't know how that's set up over there. If it'll do it itself, if it's programmed or not. I don't have it programmed in the PLC to do anything like that.
And so it'll tell you the generator running. Does it have a history for that one through that screen?
This one? No. No. Basically, if you have a generator running, it'll trigger an alarm, or it'll trigger a little event.
Now, eventually, we're going to see this screen back at the wastewater plant where, I think we are. But,
Well, I'm gonna see, what your SCADA system has and what I can do with it. As far as having, it probably won't be as detailed as all this. You'll probably get like set up alarms, that type of stuff, you know, looks like you need control. I gotta see what your setup
You're coming
is.
over Thursday, right?
I am. I was gonna see if after this, I could possibly go in there and just take a look at it to see, take another look, take a look and see what's there.
Yeah, because I think at, Pump House One, we have, a screen in there that'll tell you when the generator is running and stuff like that. They're supposed to exercise once a week, you know what I mean? And whether you guys do it or whether the generator company does it.
We'd have to get Cummins to set that up. They typically do that. So whether it's you or Danny, if you guys want to give us a date and time that it exercises weekly, that's not a problem.
Right. Okay.
And we'll monitor that point, so.
And it'll, if it is running, it'll show up on that screen.
Yeah, I know, it'll show on this one, but like I say, I don't know if it'll show up back at the plant too. It would be good if it did, but generally, any of them we set up, we have them run at 8:30 on one of the days other than Friday, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday at 8:30. And that way we know if we go by a place and it's running, the generator's running, if it's at 8:30, we know, well, it's called for it. And
Yeah.
it's, you know, and that's probably what we'll do over here too, so.
And then you have your PLC battery low. That means that the battery backup at the PLC is low.
Is that, that's in here too, right?
Yes. The PLC's in this cabinet as well.
Oh, okay, you're touching nothing.
No, we have to change out one of those. Over there at our other plant.
I'm trying to think if, basically up here, up on the top bar here, you'll see who the current user is. And it's got the time and date. That's about it. That's about it on the HMI screen there. Any questions?
Do you guys wanna step up and look at the screens, you know, stuff that you thought about, or?
Oh, I got
You know.
one. There's one that I didn't go through. This Plant IO. This is kind of what I use for troubleshooting and that type of stuff. But this shows you all your input, output, and your cards and what they're doing. So you click on them. This will tell you the state that it's in, if it's off or on. And then it has a force enable and a force state. So that's overriding that in the logic, either on or off. And when you do that, it'll show you, it'll pull up the alarm, and then it'll also show you the force enabled on the alarm as well, the alarms and events. So you can see what's been forced on or off. So that goes through, you have your different cards, you know, that have all the inputs on them, your outputs. Any other questions, comments?
Does that have a filter for the cabinet, air filter?
I don't know the best. I don't think we have anything pulling in from outside anywhere. So I don't have any.
No, we have another electric room,
Uh-huh.
and it's similar to this, but it's got its own filter,
Mm-hmm.
which I changed, you know. And then, like I say, we just got the batteries out there that I changed out.
Yep.
I mean,
I guess the other thing back here that I need to show you is for the UPSs, we have that switch, which is in normal, which if you want to bypass the UPS, you flip it over to bypass, and it will, you know, take the UPS out.
right, like if your battery backup fails, you can change it over
Correct.
to unplug it and
Yep.
replace it. Because I've had to do that over there.
Yep.
When you say there's an intrusion alarm on this.
So that controls the light and the intrusion alarm.
See what else. Any fuses in this?
Yes, there are a ton of fuses in this thing. All these are fuses, all the way down here. These will light up when they're out. And then you got your circuit breakers right here. CD1 is your main circuit breaker. CD2 basically controls the power to the light of the system.
Okay, let me ask you about the antenna and everything, the SCADA.
Yep,
So it's coming in right here, right?
correct. It comes in here.
Right.